Hey everyone. I wanted to put a video together covering some of the happenings, some of the news that's been taking place in the AI space. I do warn you there's going to be a little bit of opinion within the video as well. There's a lot of different things happening in a lot of different directions, and I wanted to just, put it all together in one place. So I'll start today by talking about AI images in the world of stock photos, because we've got different companies saying different things and there's a lot of infighting. It's very cool. The CEO of Getty Images, for example, is saying that selling AI art could be illegal, and they're very much against it. And Shutterstock, for example, going a very different direction, seemingly embracing AI art, embracing AI artists, and potentially bringing them into the fold. And of course, now there's a lot of conversation surrounding things like stock photographers and how bad this is for them and their career. And yeah, this is going to affect the demand for these types of jobs, but is it really going to be any different from when high quality cameras showed up in our smartphones? Is it going to be much different from when Photoshop hit the floor? When the common people have access to these kind of tools, all of these new things, all of these new technologies are going to influence the demands for everything. But regardless, national news is in a tizzy. You've got CNN out here telling us how furious artists are about having their work and their style copied. But I remind you that style isn't something that can be copyrighted. This is a necessary evil. I also remind you, it's not going to be individual people who take advantage of laws like this, even if we were to put stuff like that in place. A corporation, for example, would be the most likely to copyright a style, if you could. Just like record labels would claim entire music genres if they could. It is interesting to see the argument. There is something there that artists are being affected by the presence of this technology, but I don't think that copyright or calling it copying is the right way to go about dealing with this issue. And in that vein, as we talk about this subject, I want to also bring to attention that AI art is something that's already been in use for a while now. I mean, you've seen things like deepfakes, you've seen things like the images. This is something that's brand new to us, the common folk, and it's new to you, but it is something that's been in development for many years. You've got DALL-E, DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, Imagine, Midjourney, and more, and that's just in the world of image generators, and that's just the ones that you have access to. Remember when Val Kilmer got his voice back? That was AI, and Spotify owns that company now, Sonantic. All of these generators, they're owned by various billion-dollar companies, and they're trying to figure out the best way to make money on their investment. Microsoft, for example, they just refused to let Bing die, and they decided to shoehorn DALL-E into both Edge and Bing recently. So at least it seems very likely we're going to stop hearing about DALL-E as much. But one of the things you'll notice is you're only hearing about possible dangers coming from the common folk like you and me. No one's arguing that big companies shouldn't have access to this technology, right? Microsoft also owns Copilot, which is part of owning GitHub, which you may not have heard as much about, for example, but that's an AI-powered code writer. It was trained on the code available in GitHub in the same way that image generators were trained. When I posted this video, it immediately goes into Google's Grinder, and it gets scraped to help train their AI systems. That's not theft. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of the technology like AI video that can only come from scouring thousands and thousands of videos. I appreciate that I can get automatic captions now, which is another AI technology that comes from this same process. When you hear the argument that artists are losing work, we're not talking about professional artists in major studios. Even things like comic book artists, they aren't likely to get replaced anytime soon. These tools, they're going to assist artists far more often than they're going to eliminate the need for those artists. Do you really think major animation studios like Disney or even places like the Cartoon Network, do we really think those companies were completely caught off guard by technology that's been in development for years? Those professional artists have either already adapted or they've had access to proprietary technology before you ever had your hands on the free stuff. So a lot of this sensationalism is just that, it's sensationalism. One very interesting observation to make is how many of these companies are claiming that what they're doing is very open. And you really want to ask yourself how many of these companies are really putting this technology into your hands versus telling you how open their technology is while kind of gatekeeping it. Unjustified fears are going to be brought to the table, and I'm sure a lot of these companies hope that we give them the power to make these decisions on our behalf. But we've already seen how that works with entertainment media and really just censorship in general. People have insanely varied opinions on what is acceptable, what's right and wrong, what's morally correct, and what's morally incorrect. And really, no one should be making the decisions on behalf of other people in that regard. Luckily, there doesn't seem to be a single company that's holding all of the cards at this moment. That would make the situation a lot more dire. Hugging Face, the organization behind the place where most of these models are being kept, they look to be involved in a new project that's designed to create yet another open source alternative. We'll of course have to keep an eye on it to see how things pan out, but Big Code looks promising. From a consumer perspective, an end user type of perspective like ours, we want as many people in this space competing as possible, because it's going to make the companies try to compete for us and for the things that we want. And when mega corporations like Microsoft purchase other corporations like DALL-E and like Copilot and GitHub and start putting everything together, it really just makes it a worse experience for everyone, and it weakens the technology as a whole. Feel free to argue with me in the comments about that one, but I would just point you in the direction of Bing. And I'll end today's video by asking you what your thoughts are on all of this. It's been crazy trying to keep an eye on media and seeing all these opinions going back and forth, but what are your thoughts? Do you agree with Emad from Stability that people are generally good and will do good things? Or do you think it's a good idea to have people in charge of what can be generated or can't be? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'm going to keep an eye on some more of these news stories as they continue to come out and hopefully try to keep us all a little bit more informed of what's going on, because there's a lot of moving parts. It's really tough to keep up with. But as always, I appreciate your time with me here today. Thanks for watching.